sunset, you know, what can you do about it? But it is a lovely spot. As you can see, it's nice to just like rest for a minute, sometimes have a picnic. There's usually yoga on that side of the park. Let's be I know, right? Florida, there's some Florida. What company? You didn't say. I didn't know this. But when you pay your house distribution, you're supposed to pay your rent. To show that your house is paid for free. That's exciting. Yeah, come on in. We're going to be parked here for just a moment. If you look up the hill, that is Meeting Street. That goes away from us in a nice steep hill. If you look down this way, that is Meeting Street. That goes away from us in a nice steep hill. And so we call these the Meeting Street Stairs. They've wreaked havoc with the GPS over the years. Okay. I sense some unease. I'll let them know. So anyway, it is built on the plot of land that used to be where the Rhode Island State Penitentiary sat for a number of years in the 1800s. It has been many things since that time. All of those things absolutely haunted because that is where those public executions would have taken place. And now you can never unhear that, so enjoy your back to school shopping. And unfortunately, I know we all laugh about it, but unfortunately still, a year after that happened, new evidence suddenly was uncovered that cleared John Gordon's name completely. So not only was he the last man to be hung by the state of Rhode Island, he was the last one to be wrongfully executed. We did abolish the death penalty shortly after that. Whatever electronics you are currently fiddling with at the time. Maybe you're... I love to see it. Yeah, they love to fiddle with electricity. They also like to make you think that you're hearing things like birds. Maybe make you think you're smelling things. Lots of things that we'll talk about later in the night. Moving on from there, an orb is that little blob of light that shows up for seemingly no reason in your picture. So I will say, take as many pictures as you like as we go out and about tonight. We do have a lot of opportunity for lens flare. And so that means that wherever you go, take a few in a row always, like sport mode, like, and then, yes, whoever does, yeah. And that way you can tell it only showed up in one of your pictures and not the other ones. That means you have something suspicious to look at later. Moving on from that, an apparition is kind of like Casper the Friendly Ghost. It's a level up. It looks recognizably like a person, but one you can still see through to the other side of. And then the holy grail of what you might encounter is what we call a specter, which does look like a solid living person just like you or I. So any of those people going down the stairs before, we'll never know. This could have already been the most successful ghost tour, and we're going down. That means we gotta go back up. No, it doesn't. No? We start downhill, we end downhill.
Oh, sweet. Oh, so we end at a different spot.
No.
Oh.
No, we end in the same spot. Psych.
I just like to understand. So we're gonna go back up there. Yeah.
Whoa.
If anything starts, I don't know, beeping, flashing, like...
If he starts running, then we know we gotta go.
Yeah, that's what happens. He goes.
Great. He's gonna stand right there.
That's This is Dexter House, which is a dorm for RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. If anybody here went to college, I don't know, your dorm experience might have been like, mine was not a beautiful historic home on the east side. Mine was also not haunted. Take the good with the bad. But this was originally the home of a man named Ebenezer Knight Dexter, very wealthy man who lived here in the 1800s. And when he died, he had a large amount of land that got broken up, some of it donated to the state of Rhode Island, bits and pieces sold off to different people here and there. Two men bought this house. They moved in, they started a business together. They were an odd couple, but they made it work out okay. One was a butcher, one was a funeral director. Oh, sweetie Todd. But they
Yeah, they reopened the house as the Horace B. Knowles Funeral Home. They were very sought after, super popular in this area, because they were the first ones here to practice the fine art of embalming.
No, it was just so perfect. So kids who live here today do experience a lot of low-level poltergeist action. A lot of doors and windows that seem to open and shut on their own. Things that might not completely ruin your day. But every once in a while, somebody wakes up in the middle of the night, not sure what's going on,
Until they turn on the light and they can see the dip sitting in the mattress next to them. At the end of the summer, obviously pictures of the end of the fall semester, she realizes that no one has been taken upstairs at all the entire night. Fun. It's Saturday night in mid-July, but I have to go. And when they saw Angela, they turned to each other and turned their backs. So she said, well, I guess that makes me nothing. Snuck down through that tunnel, up into the empty fleur-de-lis, all the way up to the top floor where his office was. That is where she shut the door and turned on the gas, which was fixed heat. The ending of a lot of things. That evening and the next day when she was found, and it is said that she doesn't like change in the building. I don't blame her.
That is representing.
And it starts with like 5 You have to let go of it and do it again. What? If anybody takes a drink from the fountain and said that your soul is forever bound to keep returning to Providence. So if you've had a good time, you're looking for an excuse to come back. Alright, cozy everybody.
Nothing.
This is the Providence Athenaeum. It is a membership library here in the city, so you do have to be a member that pays dues in order to take out books, use it like a real library, but it is open to the public when it is open. So anybody can come in, sit and read a book for a while, just not run away with it. You can take your laptop and your dog friendly at the Athenaeum. I know, right? We're all crazy dog ladies here in Georgia, so I have to mention that. But it's just a lovely spot. It's a beautiful building. And when it was still a new fixture here on the east side, it was home to a very different love affair between two writers that lived in the city. How appropriate. So the woman was named Sarah Helen Whitman, and she was a lady that definitely marched to the beat of her own drum. Instead of wearing the brighter colors and the frothier fabrics of the day, she dressed every day in heavy head-to-toe black. Girl after my own heart. Instead of wearing lots of bright, sparkly baubles, which she could have afforded to. Instead, she only wore a silver coffin that hung from her neck. That was her only piece of jewelry. And instead of going to church or brunch or going to visit friends and family on Sunday afternoons, she was having seances in her living room every Sunday. So she was goth before goth was cool. The Seeress of Providence actually was her nickname. Much better nicknames for women back then. And one night in the middle of the hot, sticky summer, she stepped out of her home up on Benefit Street just to catch a breath of fresh air one night. She was sitting in her rose garden when she was spotted under the lamplight from across the street by a man named Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh.
That recognition is my favorite part of everything. So they were obviously a match made in heaven, right? Or somewhere. They would come here to the Athenaeum to read poetry to each other among the shelves. Supposedly they got kicked out pretty often for reading poetry to each other among the shelves as well. That is when he officially moved to Baltimore. And he didn't live there for very long before he was found one morning lying face down in the street, wearing somebody else's clothes, and they had no idea why. He was found conscious but not responsive. So he was taken to a hospital. They kept him there for 4 days, and that is where he died, shrouded in mystery, as I'm sure he is so pleased about wherever he is today. So while in Baltimore you can visit his body, his grave, and a lot of traditions that they have down there, Providence obviously likes to claim a little more of the heart and soul. We say he comes back to lend inspiration to, I say play a lot of tricks on, the artists and the writers that live in the city. And back in the 1980s, we had a member of the Athenaeum come in just to return some books one morning. He got to the bottom step of the stairs, encountered a man lying across the step, what this guy later described as like a bum sleeping it off. So rather than walk around this man or even talk to this man, no, he got very indignant about this man being here. Wanted him like, get up, get off my lawn. So just started to nudge him with his foot. We all know what kind of guy he is now. And so this man, pretty much exactly like I would do, grabbed his coat a little tighter around him and he snuggled right in. He was not about to budge. And this guy just kept at it harder and harder and harder until finally this man stumbled up to his feet, staggered into the guy's face and said, "The conqueror were!" And then vanished into thin air, as you do when you want to make an exit, right? So taken aback, he ran inside. He found the first person to tell all about it. He had no idea what just happened to him, but he knows what he saw and he knows what he heard. The conqueror worm, the conqueror worm. And this lady's like, "Okay, pal, slow down. If that is the case, I got just the thing for you." So she grabbed a book off the shelf, came back and read him the last 2 parts of this poem. "But see amid the mimic root a crawling shape intrude, a blood red thing that writhes from out the scenic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food, and seraphs sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out are all the lights, out all and over each quivering form, the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm, while the angels all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy man, and its hero, the conqueror worm."
There's one on the tour with us. Right there.
Wow.
Something's good right here.
And now nothing.
Oh,
Look at that.
definitely more powerful than here.
Watch your step.
George Street, named originally for King George of England. Have we all listened to the Hamilton soundtrack?
Yes.
There we go, that one. But back in the 1890s, there was a little boy who lived on the street, also named George. His name was George Kelly, 7 years old at the time of the story. We are very sure he thought the street was named for him. How could he not? He had been the child of very wealthy parents who, of course, loved and spoiled him very, very much. And being wealthy in the 1890s, they did own a garage, which would be a lot like owning a car today. There's time and money that you put into the upkeep of the vehicle, right, to make sure it looks nice on the outside, works nice on the inside. Unfortunately for poor little George, his family did not put safety first. So he was being driven one day to a very fancy play date. Just as the carriage got over the crest of the hill, that the carriage snapped in half. A little bit like the back axle of your car snapping in half. So it was a dramatic event. The driver was thrown to the side of the road. He was later survived, but George was left clinging for dear life in the back of the falling apart carriage as it careened down the hill, still attached with a horse. When they got to the bottom of the street, that is actually where the horse turned onto Benefit Street. For whatever reason, that spooked horse is not however, That is also where the rest of the carriage finally fell apart, flinging George up and over the intersection, landing headfirst into the steps of that townhouse. Which is hard to see right now because of the scaffolding they are working on the house. But that house, those steps. And again, middle of the day, there were a lot of eyewitnesses there to rush to Escape Alley. There's not a lot you can do for somebody when their skull has been cracked wide open. You guys come right through.
Have a good day.
Have a good night, everybody. Once again with the tiny children, right? Right? We're not talking about the death.
Tiny children.
So the man who used to live
One of them
in
is
that townhouse was a retired Brown University professor. He said that every year at the end of the summer, just as the air starts to get nice and crisp and cool again, like mid-September maybe, he would get woken up in the middle of the night by that clip-clop sound. Like,
How was the training today?
Amazing.
I needed to see just I crashed.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it was absolutely
But I heard good things. I was checking in with Megan and I came down to the little I don't know if I saw it. Did you?
Yeah. Well, you took lunch.
Well, and then I had planned on staying down there, and then Courtney went back to the room, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go back to the room too. Yeah, I gave it a shot. I gave it a good old college try. Yeah, we sent out she said what the else is.
So they see it. Do you like everybody finish it?
I don't know.
That's good.
Why didn't you? Oh, you did? Oh.
Just sitting down is the Anne Mary Brown Memorial Museum dedicated to the life of Anne Mary Brown, who was born in 1831 to a very wealthy family. So, because she was born with what today we probably call asthma. She had bad respiratory issues, and parents could afford to treat that basically by chasing the good weather, going all over the country, sometimes over Europe for a while, just depending on whatever climate would be best for her lungs at whatever time of year. So by chasing the good weather like that, she did get to grow up. First of all, if we go more than 10 minutes in any direction, well, that's dangerous. Guys, pack a lunch, extra water, call your mom when you get there, she's probably gonna be worried, and then you might not come watch it. Secondly, if you have a summer home and a winter home, both in the state of Rhode Island, they're probably no more than 10 minutes apart. And of course, Warwick is about 10 minutes down the highway from here. I'm sure a slightly longer journey by horse and carriage in the 1850s. One year right before Christmas, it said that a maid just forgot to light the fire in her fireplace one evening. Whatever happened. The fire went out, a cold settled in her chest. That cold turned to pneumonia. She died about 3 weeks after Christmas that year. Understandably, her whole family is devastated, especially Rush, who in the time after she passed away, kept busy by building this. Back in the 60s and 70s here, security, not the greatest. While a bunch of kids were trying to drive down the King Street stairs at the bottom of the hill, up here, breaking into the museum at night, just because it had become the fun thing to do. Unfortunately, still, a lot of artifacts were going missing during that time from the museum. I know, it's like, stay in school, don't break into museums. It's just not nice. A lot of things have made their way back to us, which we are thankful for. The first year that I was doing this tour, they had just found Rush Hawkins' ceremonial sword from the Civil War, so they were very happy to get that back. They found it on eBay, by the way. At the end of their rope, they hired a psychic and a clairvoyant to go in one night just to see what they could see. They said we had nothing to lose. So just like every good horror movie, they went straight into the basement. And that is where they saw mist swirling in the middle of the floor. That mist rose up to take the shape of a woman who was wringing her hands, looking very distressed and gazing sharply into the corner of the room. So when they followed her gaze, they saw a pile of papers on the floor. They saw a box that looked like it had fallen off the shelf. They said, maybe she's need to start over. So picking up papers, they discovered it was all letters back and forth between Anne and Rush. They pick up the box, and it says across the lid, never to be opened. So they shove those letters in that box, put it back up on the shelf, and that is when the apparition began to dissipate. Days after that, everything kind of settled back into normal. No one complaining about shadowy figures following around. Suddenly the electricity started to work okay. Like it was as if the building had breathed a sigh of relief. So when you go inside today, that box sits upstairs where everybody can see it in a glass case, so nobody can touch it. But it is a place I recommend. It is a favorite of us to do the ghost tour. You can see some really great things, and you can really feel the love that this man had for his wife. You just get to get out by the door. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, but I have now given my official recommendation. And we can make our way now. Yes, and now that I'm not standing in front of them, take your pictures with yours, and we'll go into the building. Right.
Mm-hmm. Going again.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're about to figure out where we're imagine they lead us where it's like going. I want to light up my
Kind of going over there.
Were we hacky sacking like dead bodies?
I told you there was a loving memory thing.
Crazy. So we're just saying.
All of these buildings are absolutely gorgeous, but the building behind me is not just the oldest building on the quad. This is one of the oldest buildings still standing in Providence. This is doing some stuff, I see.
Yeah.
It is University Hall. Today is an admin building, so no classes happen here, but tons of activity in and out. Professors have office space here and things like that. And once again, we've all listened to the Hamilton soundtrack now. Kind of a hot spot in our history over there, because it was the worst thing I have ever smelled. It was like rotting, garbagey fertilizer. All I could think of was like, whatever they planted today is not going to grow. This is toxic. And people went, okay. They had no reaction. And I was like, wow, these guys are troopers. So we got through it. I came back the next night, Saturday night, huge group of people. And I was like, okay, we're just going to walk through. If that smell is still there, I'm going to keep going. They don't know what it is. And it occurred to me, idiot, you talked about this smell. So that Oval House smell does come out to pester one, maybe two people at a time. I've never seen it be more than two people at a time. And it usually is in the chillier weather. I just this year, for the first time ever, had it happen in July. And this woman told me at the end of the night she's very sensitive to this kind of thing. It's not always that kind of smell. Sometimes it's a very strong antiseptic smell, or not a smell at all. Sometimes it's a heavy pressure on the chest or the stomach. That disappears as soon as we get to the sidewalk. So if any of that was you tonight, I'm so sorry, but you're special. Good job.
When I say Robbie's thing has been going off like
That's
crazy.
fine.
I know.
His phone went off
Standing over here
too.
all-
His phone went off too. So
He's on his phone.
we'll chat about this later. Over at where those lights are on, there's like a little alcove area with a rocking chair. Like kids use it as a waiting room area for their advisory appointments. Everybody knows, don't sit in that chair. It's already going to be rocking when you get there. And if for some reason it's not, give it a minute, it'll start. Under this operating theater, there's a very tiny, tiny room. Of course, it's a ladies' room. And it is very, like, one person at a time can fit in this room.
You think it'd be more up on that third one?
That'll cost you $30,000
Right,
a year.
Yeah, pocket change.
We should go get some money for that.
I haven't wanted to go to school in 30 years.
To tag along on one of those. This is a beautiful can't wait for this. So yeah, I like this stuff. I'm like, seriously. In the dark. Here, big breakfast.
So this is the John Hay Library, still part of Brown University, built in 1910. So just as fancy as we can kind of see on the inside as it is here on the outside. Also, why it's getting a nice little face look with the red doors right now. It is a place that houses, excuse me, a lot of very old, very fragile collections.
Go in now. Not anymore.
Scared him away.
Anything?
So do you win anything doing that or what?
You were going crazy over around.
They moved the house from College Street up here to Prospect, which, as you can see, went very well. Still some lovely people live inside who every night, I'm sure, are like, here comes this god lady pointing at my house again. And we do get a lot of activity on this corner, which might be because, and people felt very strongly about saving the house because it was the last house that H.P. Lovecraft ever lived in. Sir. Okay, so if you've never heard of Lovecraft, the time has come. He is an author who gets lumped in with Edgar Allan Poe quite often, actually. He's early 1900s as opposed to mid 1800s, but he is considered one of the founding fathers of the horror genre, of weird fiction. He's written like Call of Cthulhu and Dagon, all of those very creepy elder god sea monster type things. Born and raised in Rhode Island, he lived his whole life here. He moved into this house to take care of his two aunts, who were elderly at the end of their lives. They would also eventually have their funerals down the street at the Harvard Funerals Funeral Home. And he stayed here even after they died, wrote most of his work from inside this house. I think problematic is the nicest thing I can possibly say about him as a person, but him as a writer, his work has really given a lot of inspiration to people today who run with it. I will probably go home after this and watch Lovecraft Country for